Hello, my little love. Did you have a good day today? I hope something made you smile. Now take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and let your mind get soft and quiet. It's time for a gentle bedtime story. Tonight, my dear one, I'm going to tell you a very special story, a peaceful tale called Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let your imagination drift gently along with me. Once upon a time, on a warm and golden afternoon, a little girl named Alice sat beneath a big shady tree by the riverbank. The grass was soft and green, like a cushion made of silk, and the air smelled of wildflowers and fresh water. Her older sister sat nearby, reading quietly from a book, and the pages rustled gently in the breeze. Alice tried to listen, but the day was so warm and drowsy that her eyelids grew heavy, and her mind began to wander and drift like a cloud across the sky. She watched the river flow slowly past, its surface sparkling in the sunlight like scattered diamonds. Dragonflies with shimmering wings danced above the water, and somewhere far away, a bird sang a soft, sleepy song. Alice yawned and stretched, feeling wonderfully lazy and content. The world felt slow and peaceful, and time seemed to move like honey pouring from a jar. Then, quite suddenly, something unusual happened. A white rabbit with soft, clean fur hopped past her, very close. And Alice noticed he was wearing a little waistcoat with tiny brass buttons that caught the light. But what was even more curious was that the rabbit was talking to himself in a worried, breathy voice, saying, oh dear, I shall be so very late." He pulled a pocket watch from his waistcoat, looked at it with wide pink eyes, and shook his head before hopping quickly toward a hedge nearby. Alice sat up, feeling a gentle tingle of curiosity. She had never seen a rabbit with a pocket watch before, and she wondered where he might be going in such a hurry. Without really thinking about it, she stood up, brushed the grass from her dress, and followed him at a calm, easy pace. The rabbit disappeared behind a thick cluster of bushes. And when Alice pushed through the leaves, she found a large rabbit hole beneath the roots of an old oak tree. The hole looked deep and dark, but not at all frightening. It seemed to hum quietly, as if it were full of secrets and soft whispers. Alice knelt down and peeked inside, trying to see where it led. Then, before she quite knew what was happening, she leaned a little too far forward and tumbled gently into the hole, falling slowly down. It was the strangest fall. She did not drop quickly or feel scared at all. Instead, she floated downward as lightly as a feather, drifting past shelves and cupboards that had been built into the earthen walls. There were jars of marmalade, clocks that ticked softly, maps rolled up with ribbons, and books stacked in neat little piles. Everything glowed with a warm, amber light, as though the tunnel itself were filled with gentle sunshine. Alice felt calm and curious, reaching out to touch things as she passed, her hair floating around her face like she was underwater. She fell for what felt like a very long time, but it was not unpleasant. She had time to wonder where she might land, and whether she would meet the white rabbit again. And what sort of place could possibly be at the bottom of such a deep, cozy hole? And then, as gently as a leaf landing on soft moss, she touched down on a pile of dry leaves and twigs that crunched quietly beneath her. Alice stood up, dusted off her dress, and looked around. She was in a long hallway with walls made of smooth stone that gleamed like polished silver. The air was cool and smelled faintly of earth and rain. Lanterns hung from the ceiling, casting pools of golden light along the floor. And at the far end of the hallway, she saw the white rabbit's fluffy tail disappearing around a corner. She followed him, walking quickly but not running, her footsteps echoing softly in the corridor. When she turned the corner, she found herself in a curious round room with doors of all different sizes built into the walls. There were tall doors and short doors, wide doors and narrow doors. Some painted red and some painted blue, and each one had a brass handle that shone like a little sun. But all the doors were locked. In the center of the room stood a small glass table with delicate curved legs, and on the table was a tiny golden key. Alice picked it up carefully and tried it in every lock, but it was too small for all the big doors. Then she noticed something she hadn't seen before. Behind a curtain was a little door, no taller than her knee, and when she knelt down and tried the golden key, it fit perfectly. The door swung open with a soft creak, and through it, Alice could see the most beautiful garden she had ever imagined. The garden glowed with soft colors. There were flowers of every shade, roses and tulips and daisies swaying gently in a breeze she could feel even from where she knelt. Fountains sparkled in the distance, and paths made of white pebbles wound between beds of green grass. It looked like a place made of dreams, peaceful and perfect. But Alice was far too big to fit through the tiny door. She sighed, wishing she could shrink down just a little. As if in answer to her wish, she noticed a small glass bottle sitting on the table. It had not been there a moment ago, she was sure of it. The bottle had a label tied around its neck with a ribbon, and the label said, in curling handwriting, "Drink me." Alice looked at it carefully. The liquid inside was clear and sparkled faintly, like sunlight through water. It smelled sweet, like cherries and cream and warm toast with butter. Alice was a thoughtful child, and she knew it was not wise to drink strange things without thinking. But the bottle seemed so friendly and harmless, and she was very curious about the garden. So she took a small, careful sip. It tasted wonderful, like all the best flavors mixed together, and as soon as she swallowed, she felt a strange, ticklish sensation. She was shrinking, slowly and smoothly, growing smaller and smaller until she was no taller than a dandelion. Now she was exactly the right size to fit through the little door. But when she tried to open it, she realized with disappointment that she had left the golden key on top of the glass table, which now seemed as tall as a mountain. She tried to climb the table legs, but they were too smooth and slippery. She sat down on the floor, feeling a little bit sad, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. Then she noticed a small glass box sitting beneath the table. She opened it gently, and inside was a tiny cake decorated with currants that spelled out the words, "Eat me." Alice was hungry after her long fall, and the cake smelled delicious, like vanilla and almonds and honey. She took a small bite, and immediately she began to grow. She grew taller and taller, stretching upward like a flower reaching for the sun, until her head bumped softly against the ceiling. And she had to bend her neck to fit in the room. Now she could easily reach the key, but she was far too large to fit through the little door again. She felt confused and a little overwhelmed, and she began to cry. Her tears were so big now that they splashed onto the floor like raindrops, forming a puddle that spread across the stone. She cried and cried, not from fear, but from frustration and strangeness, until the room was filled with a shallow pool of salty water. Then she remembered the glass bottle. Perhaps if she drank a little more, she would shrink again. She picked it up carefully and took another sip, and sure enough, she began to shrink once more, down and down and down, until she was so small that she slipped and fell with a tiny splash into the pool of her own tears. The pool had become a lake, and Alice found herself swimming in warm, salty water that rocked her gently like a cradle. As she paddled along, she noticed she was not alone. A mouse was swimming nearby, his little whiskered face bobbing above the water, his tiny paws paddling steadily. Alice, wanting to be friendly, said hello and asked the mouse if he knew the way out of the pool. But the mouse seemed startled and swam quickly away, muttering something about cats. Alice followed him gently, apologizing and promising she meant no harm. Soon, other creatures joined them in the water. There was a duck with glossy green feathers, a cheerful dodo bird who hummed softly to himself, a parrot with a bright yellow beak, and several other friendly animals, all paddling peacefully together. They all swam toward the shore, and when they reached the edge, they climbed out onto soft grass and sat together, dripping and tired but glad to be safe. The dodo bird, who seemed very wise and kind, suggested they should all dry off by having a gentle race. It was called a caucus race, and there were no rules or finish lines. Everyone simply walked and ran in circles wherever they liked, at whatever pace felt good, until they were dry and warm again. Alice joined in, wandering in lazy loops across the grass, and soon everyone was laughing softly and feeling much better. The dodo bird declared that everyone had won, and they all deserved prizes. Alice found some candies in her pocket and handed them out, and everyone was happy. After the race, the animals wandered off into the trees, waving goodbye and wishing Alice well. She walked on alone, through a forest where the light was green and golden, filtering down through leaves that whispered gently overhead. The air smelled like pine and clover, and her footsteps made no sound on the mossy ground. Before long, she came upon a tiny house nestled between two mushrooms. Outside the house stood the white rabbit, now dressed in a fine jacket and holding a fan and a pair of white gloves. He looked flustered and distracted, muttering to himself about the Duchess and how late he was. When he saw Alice, he mistook her for his housemaid and asked her, in a hurried but polite voice, to run inside and fetch his gloves and fan. Alice, wanting to be helpful, went into the little house. Inside, everything was neat and cozy, with miniature furniture and curtains that fluttered in the breeze from an open window. She found the gloves and fan on a table, but beside them was another small bottle. Curious, she took a sip, and once again she began to grow. She grew so much that she filled the entire house, her arms sticking out the windows and her head pressing against the roof. The white rabbit came back and was terribly surprised to find his house bulging and creaking. He called for help, and soon a lizard named Bill was sent to climb down the chimney to see what was wrong. But when Bill peeked down and saw Alice's huge face looking up at him, he squeaked in surprise and scrambled back up. Everyone outside was kind and concerned, trying to figure out how to help. Finally, they tossed pebbles gently through the window, and when the pebbles landed, they turned into little cakes. Alice ate one of the cakes, and she shrank back down to her normal size, small enough to slip out through the door. She waved goodbye to the rabbit and his friends and hurried off into the forest, feeling glad to be free and still curious about where her adventure might lead. She wandered until she came to a large mushroom, as tall as a tree, with a smooth white cap dotted with soft brown spots. Sitting on top of the mushroom, calm and still, was a caterpillar with a long, segmented body of deep blue and green. He was smoking a long pipe that made soft puffs of lavender-scented smoke, and he watched Alice with slow, thoughtful eyes. The caterpillar asked Alice, in a slow, sleepy voice, who she was. Alice tried to explain, but she realized she wasn't quite sure anymore. She had been so many different sizes that day, and everything felt so strange and dreamlike, that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be just herself. The caterpillar listened patiently, nodding slowly, and then told her, in a kind and gentle way, that one side of the mushroom would make her grow taller, and the other side would make her smaller. Alice thanked him and carefully broke off a piece from each side of the mushroom. She nibbled them thoughtfully, adjusting her size bit by bit until she felt just right, not too tall and not too small, but perfectly comfortable. Then she walked on, feeling more confident now, ready for whatever might come next. The forest opened into a clearing, and there, beneath a large oak tree, was a table set for tea. It was covered with a white cloth, and on it were teacups and saucers, a teapot with steam curling from its spout, plates of buttered bread, and a dish of strawberry jam. Sitting at the table were 3 friends, a hare with long, floppy ears and a mischievous smile, a dormouse who was fast asleep with his head resting on a cushion, and a cheerful hatter wearing a tall hat decorated with a card that read, in this style, 106. They were having a tea party, though it seemed they had been having it for a very long time. The hare and the hatter welcomed Alice warmly, pouring her a cup of tea and offering her bread and jam. They spoke in riddles and told silly jokes, their laughter soft and musical. The dormouse would wake up now and then, murmur something sweet and nonsensical, and then fall asleep again. Everything felt playful and light, like a conversation that drifted wherever it wanted to go, with no beginning or end. Alice stayed for a while, sipping her tea and listening to their stories, feeling warm and peaceful in their company. But eventually, the conversation became too circular and strange, and she decided it was time to move on. She thanked them kindly, and they waved goodbye, already lost again in their riddles and rhymes. She walked further through the forest until she came upon a magnificent garden with hedges trimmed into the shapes of animals and archways covered in climbing roses. In the center of the garden, gardeners were busy painting white roses red with careful brush strokes, humming softly as they worked. They explained to Alice, in nervous whispers, that they had planted white roses by mistake, and the Queen of Hearts preferred red ones. So they were trying to fix their error before she arrived. Just then, a trumpet sounded, clear and bright, and a procession entered the garden. Soldiers marched in neat rows, followed by courtiers dressed in fine velvet, and finally, the Queen of Hearts herself. She was tall and regal, with a crown that sparkled in the sunlight and a gown that swept across the grass like a red wave. She was known for being very particular and commanding, but here, in this gentle version of the story, she was more comically dramatic than truly frightening. The queen walked through the garden, inspecting the roses, and when she saw the gardeners with their paintbrushes, she frowned and said in a loud voice, "What is the meaning of this?" The gardeners trembled, but Alice stepped forward bravely and politely, explaining that they had simply made a mistake and were doing their best to make things beautiful for the queen. The queen considered this, sniffed once, and then waved her hand dismissively, deciding to let it pass. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and the procession moved on. Alice followed them to a croquet ground, where a very unusual game was about to begin. The mallets were live flamingos, who bent their necks obligingly, and the balls were hedgehogs, who curled up and rolled across the grass with soft snuffling sounds. The hoops were soldiers who bent over and held still, trying not to giggle. It was a chaotic, silly game, and no one could quite keep track of the score, but everyone laughed and enjoyed themselves. After the game, Alice found herself wandering through a maze of tall hedges. And at the center of the maze, she discovered a beautiful fountain surrounded by stone benches. Sitting on one of the benches was a creature she had heard about but never seen, the Cheshire Cat. He had soft gray and pink fur, enormous green eyes, and the most extraordinary smile that seemed to glow with gentle light. The cat appeared slowly, first his smile, then his eyes, and finally his whole body, as though he were made of mist and moonlight. He spoke to Alice in a warm, purring voice, offering her riddles and advice that didn't quite make sense but somehow felt true. He told her that everyone here was a little mad, including her, and that was perfectly all right. He made her laugh with his upside-down logic, and when he faded away, his smile was the last thing to disappear, lingering in the air like the memory of a happy thought. Eventually, Alice found herself at a grand courthouse, where a trial was taking place. The Knave of Hearts, a gentle young man with kind eyes, was accused of stealing tarts from the Queen's kitchen. The courtroom was full of curious creatures, all sitting quietly and listening. The King of Hearts, who was smaller and much softer spoken than the Queen, presided over the trial with a thoughtful expression. Witnesses came forward, including the Hatter and the Dormouse, who gave rambling, sleepy testimony that didn't prove much of anything. Alice was called to speak, and she stood up, feeling nervous, but brave, and told the truth as she saw it, that the whole trial seemed rather silly and that perhaps the tarts had simply been misplaced, not stolen at all. Her honesty and clear thinking impressed everyone in the courtroom. But then, as Alice spoke, she realized she was growing again. She grew taller and taller, her head rising above the crowd, until she was as big as she had been in the rabbit's house. The Queen stood up and pointed at her, shouting in a dramatic voice, "Off with her head." But Alice, now too large to be frightened by such nonsense, simply laughed. She said kindly but firmly that they were nothing but a pack of cards, and at that moment, all the courtiers and soldiers rose up into the air, fluttering and spinning like autumn leaves in the wind. The cards swirled around Alice in a great spiral, and she closed her eyes, feeling them brush softly against her face like feathers. And then, quite suddenly, everything went still and quiet. Alice opened her eyes and found herself lying on the soft grass by the riverbank, her head resting on her sister's lap. The sun was warm on her face, and the river sparkled peacefully in the afternoon light. Her sister was gently brushing a few leaves from Alice's hair and smiling down at her. Alice blinked, feeling drowsy and content, and realized that she had been dreaming. All the strange and wonderful things she had seen, the white rabbit and the talking flowers, and the Queen and the Cheshire Cat, had been part of a long, lovely dream. She stretched, yawned, and smiled, feeling as though she had been on a great adventure even though she had never left the safety of the riverbank. She told her sister all about her dream, and her sister listened with a gentle smile, imagining all the curious creatures and magical places Alice described. And as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Alice felt grateful for her wonderful imagination and the soft, safe world around her. She knew that even the strangest dreams could be beautiful, as long as you woke up surrounded by love. The night grows softer now, and the stars begin to appear one by one in the darkening sky. Everything feels calm and safe, and now a new story begins, slowly and peacefully. My little love, let me gently tell you another story now. A tale called The Wizard of Oz. Close your eyes and breathe slowly, and let this story carry you into the land of dreams. Once upon a time, on a wide, flat prairie in Kansas, there lived a little girl named Dorothy. She lived in a small farmhouse with her kind Uncle Henry, her gentle Aunt Em, and her loyal little dog, Toto, who had soft black fur and bright, loving eyes. The prairie was a quiet place, where the wind whispered through tall grass and the sky stretched wide and endless above them. Life was simple and peaceful, and Dorothy spent her days helping with chores, playing with Toto, and watching the clouds drift by like slow-moving ships. One afternoon, the sky began to change. Clouds gathered, thick and dark, and the wind picked up, swirling dust across the fields. Uncle Henry looked worried and told everyone to take shelter. A storm was coming, the kind they called a cyclone, and it was moving fast. Aunt Em called for Dorothy, her voice urgent but calm, and they all hurried toward the storm cellar, a small, safe room dug into the earth. But Dorothy, who had been playing at the far end of the farm, couldn't reach the cellar in time. She ran toward the house with Toto in her arms, her heart pounding. The wind howled around her, lifting her hair and tugging at her dress. She made it inside just as the cyclone arrived, and the whole house began to shake and creak. Dorothy held Toto close, whispering comforting words to him, trying to be brave. Then, the most extraordinary thing happened. The house lifted off the ground, rising up into the air as if it were as light as a feather. It spun slowly, caught in the heart of the cyclone, and Dorothy felt herself floating, held gently by some invisible force. She was not hurt or frightened, only amazed. Through the window, she could see the wind carrying all sorts of things: a rocking chair, a cow mooing peacefully, even a woman on a bicycle who waved as she flew past. The house drifted through the storm for what seemed like hours, rocking gently like a cradle. Dorothy sat on her bed, holding Toto, and eventually the motion made her drowsy. She closed her eyes and fell asleep, dreaming of faraway places and strange adventures. When she woke, everything was still and quiet. The house had stopped moving, and sunlight was streaming through the windows, warm and golden. Dorothy opened the door and stepped outside, and she gasped in wonder. She was no longer in Kansas. She was standing in the most beautiful place she had ever seen. The grass was the greenest green, so bright it almost seemed to glow. Flowers of every color imaginable grew in thick clusters, their petals soft as silk, and the air smelled like honey in springtime. Trees with silver bark and golden leaves stood in groves, and a river sparkled nearby, its water clear and cool. As Dorothy looked around, she saw people coming toward her. They were small and cheerful, with kind faces and friendly smiles, dressed in blue clothing that shimmered in the sunlight. They were called Munchkins, and they welcomed Dorothy with gentle voices and warm laughter. They told her she had landed in the land of Oz, a magical place far from anything she had ever known. The Munchkins explained that her house had fallen on the Wicked Witch of the East, who had been unkind to them for many years. But now she was gone, and the Munchkins were free and happy. They thanked Dorothy over and over, bringing her flowers and little cakes and dancing in circles around her. Dorothy felt glad that she had helped them, even though it had been an accident. Then, in a shimmer of soft light, a beautiful woman appeared. She wore a gown that sparkled like stars and a crown of delicate silver. She introduced herself as Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, and her voice was as kind and gentle as a lullaby. She smiled at Dorothy and told her that she had done a great service by freeing the Munchkins. As a gift, she gave Dorothy the silver shoes that had belonged to the Wicked Witch, shoes that gleamed and shone like moonlight. Dorothy, though grateful for the kindness, felt her heart ache with homesickness. She asked Glinda how she could return to Kansas, to her aunt and uncle and the familiar prairies she loved. Glinda thought for a moment, then told Dorothy that the only person who might be able to help her was the Great Wizard of Oz, who lived in the Emerald City, far to the west. The journey would be long, but if Dorothy followed the road made of yellow bricks, it would lead her there. Dorothy thanked Glinda, put on the silver shoes, and with Toto trotting beside her, she set off down the yellow brick road. The road wound through meadows and forests, shining in the sunlight like a ribbon of gold. Birds sang in the trees, and the breeze was warm and soft, and Dorothy walked with a hopeful heart, trusting that the wizard would help her find her way home. She walked for a long time, enjoying the beauty of the land around her, until she came to a field where cornstalks grew tall and golden. In the middle of the field stood a scarecrow, propped up on a wooden pole. He had a kind, painted face and a floppy hat, and he was stuffed with straw that poked out at his elbows and knees. As Dorothy passed, the scarecrow turned his head and spoke to her, his voice friendly and a little bit shy. He told Dorothy that he was lonely standing in the field all day and that he wished he had a brain so he could think and understand the world better. Dorothy felt sorry for him and offered to help him down from the pole. The scarecrow was so grateful that he decided to come with her to the Emerald City, hoping that the wizard might give him a brain. Together, they walked down the yellow brick road, talking and laughing, and Dorothy was glad to have a companion. Before long, they came to a forest where the trees grew close together, their branches forming a canopy overhead that filtered the sunlight into soft green light. As they walked, they heard a strange creaking sound, like metal groaning. They followed the sound and found a man made entirely of tin, standing frozen in place with an axe raised above his head. His joints were rusted, and he could not move at all. Dorothy and the Scarecrow searched until they found an oil can nearby, and they carefully oiled the Tin Man's joints, working gently until he could move again. The Tin Man sighed with relief, his voice deep and kind, and thanked them over and over. He explained that he had once been a real man, but a wicked enchantment had turned him into tin, piece by piece. Now he had no heart, and he felt empty inside, unable to love or feel the way he once had. Dorothy's heart ached for him, and she invited him to join them on their journey. The Tin Man agreed eagerly, hoping that the wizard might give him a heart so he could feel happiness and love again. And so the three of them continued together down the yellow brick road, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and Dorothy with little Toto, all becoming the best of friends. As they walked deeper into the forest, the trees grew darker and the shadows longer. Suddenly, they heard a tremendous roar that echoed through the trees. Out from behind a boulder leapt a lion, huge and golden, with a thick mane and eyes that tried to look fierce. He roared again, but Dorothy, instead of being frightened, saw that his roar was more for show than anything else. When Toto barked at him bravely, the lion backed away, looking sheepish. Dorothy scolded the lion gently for trying to scare them, and the lion hung his head, admitting that he was not brave at all. In fact, he was a coward, afraid of almost everything, and he was ashamed because a lion was supposed to be the king of beasts, strong and courageous. Dorothy felt sorry for him and invited him to come with them to see the wizard, who might be able to give him courage. The lion's face lit up with hope, and he agreed immediately. Now there were 4 friends traveling together, each hoping the wizard could give them what they needed most. They walked on through forests and meadows, across streams and hills, helping one another whenever the path was difficult. The Scarecrow's cleverness got them out of tricky situations. The Tin Man's kindness kept their spirits up. The lion's strength protected them, and Dorothy's bravery and love held them all together. After many days, they came to the edge of a great field filled with bright red poppies. The flowers were beautiful, their petals soft and glowing in the sunlight, and their scent was sweet and heavy. But as Dorothy and her friends walked through the field, the scent of the poppies began to make them sleepy. Dorothy's eyelids grew heavy, and she yawned. The lion and Toto began to slow down, their steps dragging. The Scarecrow and the Tin Man, who were not affected by the poppies because one was made of straw and the other of tin, realized what was happening. They tried to carry Dorothy and the lion out of the field, and though it was hard work, they did not give up. They called to field mice who lived nearby, and the kind little mice came to help. Pulling the lion to safety on a little cart they made from branches and vines. At last, everyone was out of the poppy field, resting on soft grass and breathing fresh air again. When Dorothy and the lion woke up, they felt refreshed and grateful to their friends. They continued on, and soon, in the distance, they saw the Emerald City shining like a green jewel on the horizon. Its walls were tall and gleaming, and its towers sparkled in the sunlight. The closer they got, the more beautiful it became, and their hearts filled with hope and excitement. At the gates of the city, a kindly guardian greeted them and gave them each a pair of green-tinted glasses to wear, explaining that the brilliance of the Emerald City was so great that it could hurt their eyes without protection. They put on the glasses and walked through the gates, and everything around them glowed with green light. The streets were paved with emeralds, the houses were built of green marble, and even the sky seemed tinged with green. It was the most magical place they had ever seen. They were taken to the palace, a grand building with high ceilings and rooms filled with soft cushions and green silk curtains. They waited in comfortable rooms, and after a time, each of them was called to meet the wizard, one by one. The wizard appeared to each of them in a different form, to Dorothy as a giant head, to the Scarecrow as a beautiful woman, to the Tin Man as a terrible beast, and to the Lion as a ball of fire. But his message was the same to all: he would grant their wishes only if they helped him first by defeating the Wicked Witch of the West, who ruled over the land to the west and frightened everyone with her power. The friends were worried, but they had come so far and trusted each other so much that they agreed. They left the Emerald City and traveled west, into a land that grew darker and more barren. The Wicked Witch, who could see far with her one powerful eye, spotted them coming and sent challenges to stop them. She sent wolves, but the Tin Man protected everyone. She sent crows, but the Scarecrow frightened them away. She sent bees, but the Scarecrow's straw shielded the others from their stings. Finally, the witch sent her flying monkeys, strange creatures with wings, to capture Dorothy and the lion. The monkeys were not cruel, only obedient, and they carried Dorothy and the lion gently to the witch's castle. The witch wanted the silver shoes Dorothy wore, for they held great magic, but Dorothy refused to give them up. The witch kept Dorothy as a servant, making her work in the castle, but she was never truly unkind, only stern. Dorothy missed her friends and felt sad and trapped. One day, when the witch tried to trick Dorothy into giving up one of the shoes, Dorothy became frustrated and, without thinking, threw a bucket of water at her. The water splashed across the witch, and to everyone's amazement, she began to melt away like snow in the sun. The witch had a terrible weakness: water dissolved her completely, and within moments, she was nothing but a puddle on the floor. The castle workers, who had been forced to serve the witch, cheered and thanked Dorothy, celebrating their freedom. Dorothy freed the lion, and together they found the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, who had been trapped but were unharmed. Reunited and relieved, the friends returned to the Emerald City to tell the wizard that the witch was gone. But when they arrived, they discovered something surprising. The great and powerful wizard was not a wizard at all, but an ordinary man. A kind old gentleman who had come to Oz long ago in a hot air balloon and had been pretending to have magical powers ever since. He felt ashamed and apologized for deceiving them. But then, with great kindness, he showed each of them that they already had what they had been searching for all along. He gave the Scarecrow a head filled with bran and pins, telling him it represented the sharp mind he had always used. He gave the Tin Man a silk heart filled with sawdust, reminding him that he had always been the kindest of them all. He gave the lion a drink he called courage, though it was only a tonic, explaining that the lion had been brave from the very start. As for Dorothy, the wizard tried to take her home in his balloon, but the balloon floated away before she could climb aboard. She felt sad and lost, but then Glinda appeared again, shimmering and kind, and told Dorothy that the silver shoes she wore had always had the power to take her home. All she had to do was click her heels together 3 times and wish with all her heart. Dorothy hugged her friends goodbye, tears in her eyes, thanking them for all their love and bravery. Then she clicked her heels 3 times, closed her eyes, and whispered, "There's no place like home." She felt herself lifted gently, floating through the air, and when she opened her eyes, she was back on the prairie in Kansas, lying on the grass outside her farmhouse. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry rushed to her side, holding her close, and Toto licked her face with joy. Dorothy hugged them tightly, feeling overwhelmed with happiness and relief. She told them about her journey and her wonderful friends, and though they thought she had been dreaming, they were just glad she was safe. And Dorothy knew, deep in her heart, that even though Oz had been magical and full of adventure, there was no place in the world as warm and safe and full of love as home. The stars shine softly now, and the world is calm and still. Let me share with you one more gentle story before you drift into sleep. A tale called Rumpelstiltskin. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by fields of golden wheat and forests of tall, whispering trees, there lived a miller who had a beautiful daughter. She was kind and gentle, with long hair that shone like honey in the sunlight. And she spent her days helping her father at the mill, where they ground grain into flour for the village. The miller loved his daughter very much, but he had an unfortunate habit of boasting. He wanted people to think his family was special and important, so he would exaggerate and tell grand stories that were not quite true. One day, the king of the land happened to pass through the village, and the miller, eager to impress him, told a very foolish lie. He said that his daughter had a magical gift: she could spin straw into gold. The king's eyes lit up with interest, for he loved gold more than almost anything. He decided to test the miller's claim and ordered the daughter to be brought to the palace immediately. The poor girl was confused and frightened, for she knew she had no such power, but she did not want to disobey the king. She was taken to a large room in the palace, a room filled from floor to ceiling with piles of straw, golden and dry and rustling softly. In the corner stood a spinning wheel, old and wooden, with a wheel that creaked when it turned. The king told her, in a voice that was firm but not unkind, that she must spin all the straw into gold by morning, or she would be in great trouble. Then he locked the door and left her alone. The girl sat down on the floor, surrounded by the straw, and began to cry. She did not know what to do, and she felt so small and helpless in the big, empty room. As her tears fell, she heard a soft sound, like the rustling of leaves, and suddenly a little man appeared before her. He was no taller than her knee, with a long beard and twinkling eyes, and he wore a pointed hat and a cloak that seemed to shimmer in the candlelight. He asked her, in a gentle, curious voice, why she was crying, and she explained her impossible situation. The little man listened thoughtfully, nodding his head, and then he smiled. He told her that he could help her spin the straw into gold, but he would need something in return. The girl looked at what she had and offered him her necklace, a simple string of beads her mother had given her. The little man accepted it gladly, and he sat down at the spinning wheel. He worked through the night, and the wheel turned so fast it was almost a blur. The straw disappeared and was replaced by spools of gold thread, shining and beautiful, that piled up on the floor. By the time the sun rose, the entire room was filled with gold, and not a single piece of straw remained. The little man bowed, winked at the girl, and disappeared as mysteriously as he had come. When the king unlocked the door and saw the gold, he was amazed and delighted. But instead of being satisfied, his greed only grew stronger. He took the girl to an even larger room, filled with even more straw, and told her she must spin it all into gold again by morning. Then he left her alone once more. The girl sat down, feeling overwhelmed, and again she began to cry. And again, the little man appeared, as if summoned by her sadness. He asked her what she would give him this time, and she offered him her ring, a small silver band her grandmother had given her. The little man accepted it and set to work, spinning and spinning until the entire room was filled with glittering gold. The king was overjoyed when he saw the gold the next morning, but still, he wanted more. He took the girl to the largest room in the palace, filled with more straw than she had ever seen, and told her that if she could spin it all into gold, he would make her his queen. Then he locked the door and left. The girl sat in the silence, feeling tired and afraid. When the little man appeared for the third time, she had nothing left to give him. She told him sadly that she had no more jewelry or treasures. The little man thought for a moment, stroking his beard. And then he said that she could promise him something instead. When she became queen and had her first child, she would give the baby to him. The girl, desperate and not knowing what else to do, agreed. She thought it was unlikely that she would ever become queen, and the promise seemed far away and unreal. The little man spun the straw into gold once more, and by morning, the room gleamed with treasure. The king kept his word. He was so impressed by the gold, and by the girl's quiet grace and kindness, that he asked her to marry him. They were wed in a beautiful ceremony, with flowers and music and celebration, and the girl became queen. The king, seeing how gentle and wise she was, began to value her for more than just gold, and they grew to care for each other. A year passed, peaceful and happy, and the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby with soft skin and bright eyes. She loved the child more than anything in the world, and she had forgotten all about her promise to the little man. But one evening, as she sat in the nursery rocking her baby to sleep, the little man appeared again, stepping out of the shadows with a quiet smile. He reminded her gently of her promise and said he had come to take the child. The queen's heart broke, and she began to cry, begging him to take anything else, all the riches in the kingdom, anything but her baby. The little man looked at her with eyes that were not unkind, and he felt a stirring of sympathy. He thought for a moment, and then he made a new offer. He told her that if she could guess his name within 3 days, he would release her from the promise and let her keep her child. The queen agreed eagerly, hope flooding her heart. The little man disappeared, and she immediately sent messengers all over the kingdom to collect every name they could find. The next evening, when the little man returned, the queen tried name after name: Thomas, Richard, Benjamin, Nicholas, and dozens more. But to each one, the little man shook his head and said, "That is not my name." The queen felt worried, but she did not give up. The second evening, she tried more unusual names: Crispian, Balthasar, Melchior, Casper. But still, the little man shook his head with a small, mysterious smile, and said, "That is not my name." The queen's hope began to fade, but she refused to lose faith. On the third day, one of her messengers returned with an interesting story. He had been traveling through a deep forest when he came upon a tiny cottage hidden among the trees. Outside the cottage, a little man was dancing around a fire, singing a song to himself in a high, happy voice. The messenger had hidden and listened, and the song went like this: "Tonight, tonight, my plans I make. Tomorrow, tomorrow, the baby I take." The queen will never win this game, because Rumpelstiltskin is my name. When the queen heard this, her heart leapt with joy and relief. That evening, when the little man appeared, she pretended to guess other names first, teasing him just a little. She said, "Is your name Conrad?" And he shook his head. "Is it Harry?" And he shook his head again, beginning to smile with confidence. Then the queen looked him in the eye and said softly, "Is your name Rumpelstiltskin?" The little man's face fell, and he stamped his foot in surprise and frustration, though not in true anger. He had been found out, and he knew the game was over. He sighed, and though he looked disappointed, there was a hint of respect in his eyes. He had made a deal, and he was bound by it. He bowed to the queen and said, in a quieter voice, that she had won and her child was hers to keep forever. Then, in a swirl of light and shadow, he disappeared, and no one in the kingdom ever saw him again. Some said he returned to the deep forest to live peacefully among the trees. Others said he simply faded away like morning mist. But the queen did not worry about where he had gone. She held her baby close, grateful and relieved, and she promised herself that she would never take her blessings for granted again. The queen ruled wisely and kindly for many years, and her child grew up strong and happy, surrounded by love. The kingdom prospered, and people remembered the queen not for the gold she had once spun, but for her courage, her cleverness, and her deep and abiding love for her family. And so the story ends, gently and peacefully, with everyone safe and content, and the stars shining softly over the kingdom. Just as they shine over you now, my little love. You did well today, my little love. Now let your eyes grow heavy, and let the night wrap around you like a soft blanket. Sleep well, sweet dreams, and rest deeply.